Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Let me tell y'all something. Canelo must pick. He's got to make a decision. He's either fighting Terence Crawford or he's fighting David Benavidez. And the way things are looking, it's looking like that David Benavidez fight, at least for 2024, it may not happen at all. Now, we know Canelo has been allowed to do what the hell he wants when it comes to the WBC. They let Canelo, he sails his own ship. It doesn't even matter that he's not qualified to sail his own ship, but they let him get behind the damn wheel and he just goes and navigates and travels to where the hell he wants to travel to in the 168-pound division, 160, 175, hell. They were even going to let this man to travel all the way up to cruiserweight and heavyweight. That just lets you know how much control he has and how the WBC doesn't want to lose Canelo as the cash cow. But understand this. When it comes to Terence Crawford and Benavidez, if you say that you think David Benavidez deserves to fight more than Terence Crawford, I'd have to agree with you. But there's some people who would argue that with Terence Crawford and what he's done from 135, 140, 147, and how dominant that he's looked, and the fact that Terence Crawford walks around probably between 175, 177, something like that, that Terence Crawford, skill-wise, is the only person who they feel can bubble up multiple weight divisions and defeat Canelo. The same way Canelo started off in the lighter weight divisions, 140 or so, and bubbled up all the way to 175 and was able to clip Kovalev. So they're saying, well, hold your horses, let's not take it to the stupid, thinking that Benavidez is the guy to do it. Maybe Benavidez gets in the ring with Canelo, and on that particular night, he's weight drained because Benavidez has said that it's extremely difficult for him to get down to 168. Even talks to him going all the way up light, heavy, cruiser, and maybe heavyweight, because when he comes into the ring on fight night, Benavidez is weighing over 200 pounds. So they're saying a guy who shouldn't have any excuses is Terence Crawford, because if he wants to clip Canelo, then he should be able to bubble up multiple weight divisions like Canelo did and pick Canelo off the way Canelo picked off multiple champions. Now, to that I'll say this. Canelo's frame is a little bit different from Crawford's. Crawford, he's just got that natural slim frame, which it doesn't look like Crawford will ever have to worry about getting fat. If you look at how his dad is structured, you can see, man, his dad is, even at his dad's age, 50s, maybe even late 50s, maybe early 60s, his dad looks to be a guy who's just naturally slim. It's not that his dad is, working out or anything like that, which I believe he does, but it's just some people with the metabolism and genetics, I never have to worry about ballooning up in weight. And for Terence Crawford, I think he would have to be careful, because one thing just to walk around at 160, 70, 75 pounds, and it's another thing to fight at 168 and be in shape at 168. So I still think we got to be careful with that. But at the end of the day, Canelo did it. Didn't he? So why not Crawford? But these are some of the things that could present a bit of an issue. When you look at David Benavidez, for me, there's nothing stopping Benavidez from fighting Canelo next. Nothing. Benavidez wants to fight. There's no roadblocks there for him at all. Now, the things that are beyond Benavidez's control is what the WBC is going to allow. You keep hearing about Jaime Munguia fighting Canelo next. You're hearing about Terence Crawford fighting Canelo next. I'm going to tell you this. Canelo's next fight will not be against Terence Crawford. It's impossible to make that fight for March, April, or May. It's impossible, because Terence Crawford has to rematch Earl Spence. But what I will tell you is the rumors that I'm hearing, it was February. It was Crawford fighting, and him and Spence possibly fighting on the Usyk Fury undercard. It just looks like that's not going to be the answer. Now I'm hearing it could be April. So April seems to be a bit more, like March, April, to me seems to be a bit more realistic. Because if you take a look at rematches, right? More times than not, if it's just two guys in there having a good boxing match, somebody gets buzzed, nobody really gets beat down, but it's really competitive. You think that these guys can take about 3 months off, then get back into training camp for another 3 months or so, maybe 12 weeks, it just depends, and be ready by the 6-month mark to have a rematch. when you look at Terence Crawford and Earl Spence, 6 months just wasn't going to work. First of all, it was such a huge fight that these guys had, especially the winner, had a lot of commitments to travel, to speak, and just to go out there and represent as a two-time undisputed champion. That's Terence Crawford. The other thing you got to take a look at is Earl Spence got beat so badly, there's no way in the world he can return within 6 months because he needed time to heal. Okay? So then you say, these guys fought in July. My understanding is Earl Spence and his team wanted to push that fight all the way back to July. Now, this is my concern, and from what I'm gathering, it's Terence Crawford's concern. If Terence Crawford had to sit out the ring until July 2024 to have a rematch with Earl Spence, that means Terence Crawford would have been out the ring a year. Terence Crawford does not want to stay out the ring for no damn year. But Terence Crawford's fair. And he's like, okay, Earl Spence, you gave me an opportunity, right? No problem. Crawford totally appreciates it. He's not going to sit here and complicate things. At the same time, he's not going to sit here and allow someone to force him to be inactive, which could give them a better chance at beating him, especially if they're going to fight at 154. So I think this whole fight date of March, April, that seems to be more realistic to me, because if you figure July, August, September, October, November, December, January is about 6 months, right? And then you figure February, March, April, that's 9 months. That to me is the sweet spot, because if normally you want a rematch, depending on if the guys don't really take too much damage, to take place within 6 months. And then a guy, for some reason, like Earl Spence, got beat down, he wants to push it out another 6, makes it a year. That's not going to work for Crawford. So he's like, look, I'll meet you in the middle. Instead of that additional 6 months, we'll give you 3. Because Earl Spence is doing light training, but he had to take all this time to heal up. And you know what? When you get injured like that, a lot of time, and people say, what do you mean by injured? Well, you go watch the fight for yourself and you figure out what I'm talking about. When you get beat down and injured like that, although on the surface you may look okay, there's things you still feel. I was just talking the other day on the live about being in a boxing match and getting hit with a hook, and my jaw, for a long time, when I would open it, it would feel like there was like a little crack. You know what I'm saying? It would click, make a clicking sound. Then holding about TMJ and some other stuff. But anyway, that didn't go away, man, for a long time. And not no damn 6 months. Like, that shit messed me up. So I can only imagine what Earl Spence is still feeling. So I think to take this year off and then go into next year, he has more than enough time for him to get himself in shape. That's why you're seeing Earl Spence back in the gym. And that also could explain why Terence Crawford is bouncing around here trying to be Air Bud on the basketball court, because he's like, all right, training camp, he lives in the gym anyway, but he's not going to really go 100% training until probably after the holidays, because that would give him January, February, March, April. That would give him, probably close to 120 days, probably between 100 and 120 days to get himself where he needs to be. And it all makes sense. It all lines up. I mean, I could see that happening. But again, you just never know what's going to happen when it comes to these fighters. We're just having a conversation. So at the end of the day, when you take a look at that, there's no way in the world Canelo can get in the ring with Crawford if Crawford's going to be fighting around, between March and April. But now you talk about September, because once Crawford clips Earl Spence, there's nothing standing in the way of him getting in the ring with Canelo. Because I truly believe Crawford's going to drop all the rest of his belts at 147. I don't think he's going to hold on to him. Crawford's a free agent, and he's going to go where the money is. And while he still has some heat on him, even though I think he's cooled off a little bit, while he still has some heat to him, he's going to go after Canelo. And that is a fight. When it comes to Canelo, remember, Canelo, as far as legacy, his legacy is cemented. Canelo still wants to keep building on his greatness. But more than anything, Canelo wants to be a billionaire. Canelo said he wanted legacy. He already has legacy. He knows he has legacy. Now he wants to challenge himself. And fighting a guy like Terence Crawford, that's a challenge, skill for skill. Yeah, he knows he's bigger, but he knows Terence Crawford has skill. And he's looking at that as, all right, this is a good opportunity where I can continue to build my legacy, but also probably make the most money that he's ever made in his career. And when you look at if they make that fight next year towards the end of the year, with all the infrastructure being built out there in Saudi Arabia for sports, for boxing, the type of money Saudi's putting into boxing, the direction they're going, by the time those guys sort things out, and if they can get it together, I would not be surprised if the Saudis said, you know what, this fight is gaining momentum, we want to make it. And they offer both of those guys Saudi money and get that fight to take place over there. Because there's nothing stopping Canelo and nothing stopping Crawford. Canelo had one fight already. He has 2 more fights. But we don't know what the hell's going on with all that because PBC, if they're going to Amazon, we don't know what the hell's going on with PBC. But what I would say is I could see that fight happening. But I do not see him getting an opportunity against David Benavidez. I just don't see it, man. You know what I mean? I just don't. I don't. I think Canelo would rather give up that WBC strap instead of fighting David Benavidez. But, you know, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That being said, Canelo looks like he's got a pick. Because if it is David Benavidez, it can't be Crawford. Let's say he was to fight David Benavidez next. Okay? Let's just say Canelo fights David Benavidez next. David Benavidez gets his way. But just imagine Canelo going from a fight against a David Benavidez, which is probably going to be a grueling fight. And let's say he wins that fight. You think Canelo's going to want to turn around and fight Terence Crawford? Back to back, like Benavidez, then back to back go and fight Terence Crawford? You know, back to back fights against killers? I don't see it. I don't see it. And when that information was presented to me, I sat there and thought about it, and I said, you know what? Whoever is getting this information and sharing it with my boy who shared it with me, they're probably just critical thinkers like myself. Maybe they're on the inside. But I can tell you, just me being a common sense man that's been watching boxing for a while and watching how Canelo moves, there's no reason for him to want to go after Benavidez, then Crawford, unless Canelo was pursuing something. When he was on the hunt for undisputed and on the hunt for getting titles in different weight divisions, I mean, it made sense that he was going after, you know, champions back to back to back because he was man on a mission. Well, mission accomplished. Now, there's no reason at all for him to go in high-risk fights against killers. For what? Legacy that he already has? I don't think so. But I do think he's going to fight one of these guys. But I don't think he'll fight both next year. But if you ask me, I think it's more Crawford before Benavidez. And I think the WBC will allow it. I do. But I think if he fights Munguia and then fights Crawford, he's going to have to figure something out with Benavidez. I don't know. Maybe they're hoping Benavidez will just hire a lawyer and start suing. And once all that stuff happens, then it gets crazy. But I really think Canelo would rather drop that belt than fight David Benavidez. Especially David Benavidez, the way he's been looking. And I hear people saying, well, who has Benavidez fought? He hasn't fought anyone near the level of Canelo. Benavidez gets hits too much. He likes to try to walk through guys' punches just so he can get his own off. And he can't do that against Canelo. And what I'll say is, Canelo can't afford to get hit by David either. Canelo has a very similar style where he wants to put up the high guard and come forward and throw, very powerful single shots. Canelo's fallen in love with his power. But what I will tell you is David Benavidez, with his height, with his reach, with his speed, with his combination punching and his power, I don't care what anyone says, that when you look at it from that perspective, that makes that fight a very difficult fight for Canelo. Simple. Now, if you ask me, well, make a prediction, Hood, who do you think wins? I'm going to tell you, I don't know. Now, Canelo against Crawford, I can see Canelo winning. I can see Crawford winning. Canelo against Benavidez, I can see Canelo winning. I can see Benavidez winning. Like that's what makes these fights so intriguing. and make it to where for us fans, it's like this is must-see boxing. Just make the fight happen. But I'll tell you what, if Canelo does fight Benavidez and if he does fight Crawford, Canelo's not going to be okay with no 30 million. He's not going to be okay with no 35 million. You think old El Canalito isn't paying attention to what the hell's going on over there in Saudi? And Eddie Hearn is over there in Saudi getting his guys some serious money? You think old Canelo's not going to figure out a way to get through his little 3-fight deal here and get his butt over there in Saudi Arabia to make some serious dough? All these guys should be thinking about that right now. The only two who seem to be able to do it will be Canelo and Crawford because of their status. But when it comes to David Benavidez, it's like he's locked in to PBC. But nonetheless, we'll see how things shape up. But that's what I think is going to happen next year. And that's the information that's being shared with me. Canelo going to fight somebody, and I think the May time frame could be Benavidez, maybe Jaime Munguia. But if it's not Benavidez, the next fight could be Benavidez or Terence Crawford. The way I'm looking at it, I could see Crawford before Benavidez. But nonetheless, it's all conversation. We just got to wait and see what happens. Y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. In the breeze.